everybody, a warm welcome to another interview on Wisdom from North. I'm Jannike and I'm here with the lovely Jamye Price again. And it's such an honor for me to have Jamye. I really appreciate her teaching. I've interviewed her many times and she is an international energy healer. She's the author of Opening to Light Language. She has developed her own healing model called Crystalline Soul Healing. And she travels the world doing workshops, and now she's going to Stockholm in June to teach light language. And she's also a channeler, so she channels Arion, the Lyran Council of Time. Hello, Jamye, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Jannike. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, it's lovely connecting again, and especially I'm excited that you're coming to Scandinavia again, because you were here a couple of years ago. You went to Oslo, where I live, and you were part of my live evening, and now you're going to Stockholm to teach light language. And I love that, because light language, it seems like that's coming more forward now. And you've written a book about it, and you're speaking more about it yourself, and you have YouTube videos where you are doing transmissions, and it's really beautiful to just be a part of that. You know, I watch so many of your videos where I'm just sitting and just taking that light language in, and it's so beautiful. I notice that something happens with my system and my body. So I'd love to speak about that today, actually dive a bit deeper into what light language is. So for those who are completely new to light language, how would you define light language?
Light language is just a unique form of channeling. We're all channels. We are constantly receiving and emitting information. And to access light language, you are channeling nonlinear, multidimensional information. And we call it light language. Language denotes that it's information, and that is the information of healing. It is sometimes information that we would consider mental information, like a new understanding. It's not always as linear as our conscious mind, but light language has that informational component to it. And then we call it light language because light is a carrier vehicle of information. Light is what we experience in the physical realm as the movement. So when something is moving through the vacuum of space, we see the light because we are seeing that movement. And so it is information transmitting or moving into our expression, our experience. So light language is nonlinear, multidimensional communication. It may be something that is angelic in origin or galactic. It could be from many different galactic species or different timelines. It could be elemental, or like elven or fairy, or it could even be something that is connected to Earth, but is from a different timeline. So it's either an ancient language or a future Earth language. So we're connecting into something that's not as linear as our normal communication. And it's something that our body is meant to be able to do. There's references to it throughout all cultures. And all it is a connection into the subtle communication, into the nonlinear communication that's accessible to all of us.
Right.
One of the things I often say about it is it bypasses the mental constructs and speaks directly to the heart, because our heart is our engine of connection. And so normally people will notice things like they're feeling something from the light language.
So I got curious now, when you say that we all have this possibility in a way to communicate light language, which you are teaching, your students in your workshops, and you say that our bodies, it feels natural for our bodies to do it. Have you ever had children doing light language with you, or have you done light language with children? Because I can then assume that it would be natural for them to I don't know, be open for it more than
Yes.
adults.
Absolutely. Children are really open to it. And when they're younger, they are mainly in a theta brainwave
Right.
state. So that is very conducive to transmitting light language, understanding light language, and they are so open to it. I will sometimes get information back from parents even, and they'll say, "Oh, I was watching this and my child saw it, and my child was just like, oh yeah, she was saying this and this and this."
Really?
I'm like, wow, they were really picking it up. So it's so natural to us that since children are in that open brainwave state so consistently, they often are accessing it or understanding it, and it's really interesting how much it's expanding, because for them it's very natural to be in that brainwave state. But even for adults, that's part of our ascension process, is we are more consciously connected with the subtle realm. It's always been there, but now our vibration is becoming more conducive to it. So it's becoming much more accessible to people, even if that's just being accessible to receiving it, and noticing that they're feeling something, or at least feeling a draw to it.
So when it comes to the message in the light language, in a sense, I understand that there can be a message there that we can understand with our minds, our conscious minds, and it can also be the possibility that it's just a transmission in a way. It's just not a linear information. Correct?
Right. Yes. Yes. Beautifully said. It could be any of those things. Sometimes the transmissions are more closely translatable because they're closer to our linearity. I find that a lot of times the elemental languages are a little bit more translatable. Some of the galactic languages, and yet there's also the possibility that it's not as translatable because it's just not as linear informationally as we are. So sometimes when I do a transmission, I get very clear translation. Other times I just get a general meaning that comes along with it. And other times I get nothing. You know, there's just not a linear translation to it. So being open to however it manifests, I'm always looking for what kinds of things am I sensing, because part of becoming more conscious with the subtle realm is learning how our body naturally communicates. You know, some of us have stronger physical senses, or stronger clairvoyance, or stronger clairaudience. So you're learning your natural intuitive language. But sometimes with light language, it's just not as linear, and so there's not a translation.
So what are the benefits of learning light language and also taking it in, like you did with my members, like giving a transmission? What happens with us? What are the benefits?
Yeah, I love that question, because this is the thing that I find is some of the biggest hurdle for people, because it's something that we don't understand and mentally, usually. So it can be like, okay, well, why am I listening to this? What's the benefit? It just looks weird or sounds weird. And I get that. It does look and sound weird. But what I found in my own journey, and what I hear back from others, is the kind of expansion that has occurred because of the light language. What it's actually doing is it's helping our mind to expand into understanding nonlinear or multidimensional information more easily. And that means the body is integrating it, the emotions are integrating it, and so it's part of helping us to expand beyond just the physical senses, which are still valuable, into more of conscious connection and experience. And that's the thing, the experience with the subtle realm. And it's not that you have to do light language or receive light language in order to have that. It's just one facet of it. But what it's doing is helping to use the mind in a different way and expand us into naturally more multidimensional consciousness.
And that's where we are headed, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. To me, the process of ascension is all about a conscious connection with the subtle realm. And that's a very short way to say something that's actually really huge. But we're becoming more conscious with what's always been there. But instead of just it happening and we're focused in the physical realm, we are consciously utilizing that subtle realm. And Ariane gives the example, which I went into more detail with this in the video that we just did for your members, but they give the example of the atomic structure where the atom is 99% space and less than 1% of physical matter. We have that same ratio, and that same ratio applies to everything. There's actually a group of physicists that have proven that. They call it the universal scaling law, and it is Nassim Haramein, Elizabeth Rauscher, and I think David Hyde. I might be wrong on the last one. But the universal scaling law mapped that ratio, that a nebula and a proton, vastly different in size, they follow that same ratio, and so do we. So the ascension process is all about utilizing more of that 99% of us consciously instead of just focusing physically. And light language is that same way. You know, we hear or see 1% of the light language. So what you hear coming out of my mouth, or maybe you see my hands moving, or you may see it written, or you're listening to someone sing it, that's 1% of it. And then there's this vast information flow that's occurring that your higher self is activating and releasing for you. And as we become more tuned in to that 99% subtle aspect, we're starting to utilize the natural universal laws, the engines that build worlds, more consciously. And that's what really starts changing. This time is about the light workers, the sensitives, the compassionate ones owning their power and starting to get their energy into the world, so that what's occurring here is where life naturally flows to more love. And it's not about controlling this world so that it's only love. It's about living this life so that you're living your love. And then that resonance will magnetize more and more capability for love to flow. So it's a really exciting time, and it's not always easy. And light language is just one part of that, where this natural capability is becoming much more accessible to us, because that's part of the ascension path, conscious connection with the subtle realm.
Right. And I believe many light workers are longing for a deeper connection. Some have that connection already, others just long for it. And that can be a very difficult place to be in, a state where you're longing, but you feel very disconnected, but you know there's something more, like there's something more to my life. And maybe you've have a so-called regular job and you've done everything correctly, you know, according to society and what society says that this is happiness, and then it's not, you don't feel happy, but you still, you feel there's something more, but you don't know what that is. And can you say something about how we can actually connect and feel that deeper connection when we perhaps haven't developed psychic abilities like clairvoyance, clairaudience, and perhaps we're even meditating a lot. Perhaps we're, you know, listening to light language, but it seems like, but I don't hear any message, or I don't still feel like, are there somebody out there? Because many have actually written me and said, you know, I do all this work, but I don't hear anything, I don't feel anything, and I feel disconnected. And I so feel being empathic towards that, because feeling disconnected and separate, it's a really lonely feeling. And probably part of why a lot of us are so drawn to spirituality, to like connect with something deeper. So my question is, when you've tried everything, you really tried to connect, and you're still not getting that connection, what do you do?
I love this. It's making me a little verklempt because it's stirring up the emotion, because I can feel how powerful this is. You know, this is why I love connecting with you and getting to these deeper places. You know, you really go there, and I love that, because this is how we actually transform, by being willing to look at that frustration of, am I doing something wrong because I'm not getting all these amazing messages, or I'm still working a corporate job, or I haven't found my life purpose, or all of these things that our mind goes to that hurt. And that's the reality, especially for the sensitive ones, the empaths, the people that care a lot. If you didn't care, it wouldn't hurt. You know, we've all heard that saying, ignorance is bliss. And there have been plenty of times where I'm like, oh, I know it's bliss. If only I was ignorant. And yet my heart knows, of course, I can't go backwards, and I wouldn't really want to. But that pain is real. And this is what I do whenever I find that I'm feeling that kind of frustration. One, I really acknowledge it. And Ariane points this out a lot, that we have to allow those authentic feelings to flow. You don't need to wallow in them, but you have to allow them to flow, because once they come into your awareness, they are meeting that core part of you that says, I want more love in my life. I want to see peace around me. I want to experience happy people, and I want to feel that way too. And the Ascension process is all about more cohesiveness, more unity. And yet within that is the diversity and the uniqueness that fuels life. So one of the best ways that they would teach me to apply this essentially into the real world is by noticing things. So if you don't feel like you're getting profound messages, what are you noticing? Use your logical mind and find the subtle things and reinforce that for yourself, because your higher self is always communicating with you, always, 100% of the time. There's not a time where you're disconnected from your higher self. It doesn't always come in a message that's like, Jamye, turn left right here. It sometimes comes in an impulse or a desire or an emotion or overhearing something or a song that starts flowing through your head. And you're like, that's weird. I haven't heard that in a long time. You're always being communicated with. It's just a matter of picking up on those subtleties. So notice things. For example, maybe you're at work and you're feeling things like, this isn't what I want to do with my life. Why am I here? Because I've been through this. Notice whatever you can to juice that experience. Why am I here? Why am I in this experience? So that you're reinforcing for yourself, you're in the perfect moment because it's always changing. And what can you gather from that that is supporting your deeper understanding of the powerful love that's within you and the natural healer that you are, the light worker that you are, the empath and sensitive that you are, that it's going to make me clipped, that didn't just come here to feel sensitive. You came here to change things. You came here for sensitivity to be the new norm, for love to really rule this world, not in a control way, but that is like, it's so prevalent anyone can access it when they want to. And they do that through the loving ones really letting that shine. And sometimes it's not going to feel like it's shining in the perfect way. Sometimes it's going to be in the silent moments that are like, I see the things that are going on here in this corporate environment that I like and that I don't like. And all of that is just information for me to gather. Or, I suspected that person wasn't happy here and then they just left. But there wasn't really obvious clues. Everybody else is saying, I can't believe that person left. They seemed so happy. Yet I knew there was something else going on. So you're noticing, even if it's with your logical mind, what are the subtle clues? What are the things that I'm picking up on? What do I like? What do I not like? What do I want? What am I gathering from this? Oh, what did that challenge just teach me? And what that does is it starts to soften you into, I'm in the perfect place. I am capable. And it's always changing. This isn't necessarily forever. But whatever comes up, I'm ready. And because I'm right here, right now, I'm going to live it fully. Even though sometimes it's going to feel like, I just need a break. But let yourself experience all of those things, because one thing they've always shown me is it does not matter what you're doing. You could be an accountant, you could be a mom, and be a profound spiritual healer. All of it matters. It's maybe clamped again, because that's what's in you. It's something that's so profound. It is the manna, the prana, the spark of divinity that's within everyone. And yet, the challenging part about this year of freedom, it's for each of us to bring out in ourselves. Doesn't mean we do it all alone, because we keep getting the reflection from others at times too. But if it's not in there, then that reflection can't even be recognized sometimes. So just noticing, what am I sensing here? That starts to open up more of that flow.
Thank you. That was really profound, Jamye, and thank you for being so open-hearted. I love that. I know this is so important for you. This work you're doing is so important for me, and I can feel the frustration from a lot of people and how much they, especially I would say, especially a lot of women and especially sensitive people, how they are so critical towards themselves. And in that, often that distrust, in a sense, and that's why I think it's so important to speak a lot about that the universe is supporting us, because in our world it feels so much the opposite, that we're not supported, that life is actually giving us so many challenges that we can hardly survive them. It's like another one, and we work so hard on ourselves, and we have these patterns. I think a lot of us have these soul patterns and things that are coming up again and again, and wow, now it came back. Wow, have I done something wrong? So moving into that softer, trusting space is important. At the same time, it's very vulnerable to do that, to actually, wow, I'm going to trust, whatever comes, I'm going to trust that life is for me. And that's why basically I do this work. I love that teachers like you are speaking about trust, everything that happens for you. Surrender to your divine will, because they have your back. You are not alone. Because at times it just feels like we're so separate. But I do feel that, the veil is getting thinner. So it is opening up more and more. But if we're not receiving those intuitive aha moments and everything. I think there's a reason, because the universe gives you exactly what you need. That's what I believe. Exactly what you need. And I'm even not, being a clairvoyant or anything. I have some abilities in my dreams. Like I've been having precognitions in my dreams. And I wanted so much more. Like I wanted to, hear things like you did. But then I came to a place of trusting, but then I'm not supposed to have those abilities, at least not right now, like you've said. Yeah. So there's something for me to learn about that or experience. So if everything the universe is for me, then I just need to trust that and keep doing the work, keep doing it. Yeah.
It's such an important one, because I can relate even to feeling like, oh, I should know more, that I should have more senses. And yet I keep getting that lesson whenever I'm feeling like I'm needing something different. I keep getting that lesson that it's all that balancing of, we take actions, we move forward, and we focus and we practice things, and all of that is important. But so much more now, it's so important to relax. That's that subtle realm energy of magnetizing that is relaxing into those and learning to trust that flow, because that's the creative process. And there was a time where I would get a lot more psychic information because I was in a learning phase. And the shift that happens is, if we're to really hold these vibrations of love, then that means we need a strength to be able to observe and experience the challenges that may arise in this current time and still sustain that love. And so the psychic senses will even support that. And I love that you shared your experience of wanting more of that, and yet really coming to terms that it's perfect as it is, even though we can still desire for it to improve and change and do things, that it's coming from that balance of, I trust that this is perfect as it is and changing, because it gives you a time to find more of that inner strength of trusting yourself, even when there is an unknown. That future is always an unknown from linear time. And so the trusting and rather than just getting the psychic clues is an important one, because it helps us be present in the moment. It helps us have a compassion for what we're experiencing and what other people may be experiencing, because we're right there going through it. And I love that you let that frustration and that understanding reside and keep growing. It's excellent. That understanding keeps growing.
So I'm very drawn to the galactic, and I've always been drawn to it. Even though, like I've told you, I don't have that clear communication, but I still feel that this is real, like this is truth. That's where I come from. So I wanted to ask you, have your guides told you anything about how surrounded we are by our guides? Because when we do feel lonely, when we do feel we need that support, just knowing that, well, they're actually here, even though I can't see them or communicate with them, that could be very soothing. So what do you know about that from your perspective? How many guides do we have around us here on the planet?
Nice. So part of the thing that I experience when I'm connecting in with that is the layers of non-linearity, the layers of subtle linearity and then non-linearity. And in essence, there's an infiniteness to how we could define our guides. And I feel like whenever there's a number, then we're still in those linear, subtle layers. And that's perfectly fine, because that's helpful to understand. To me, that always changes, because especially now, what I've been seeing is our resonance changing so quickly that we connect in with different levels of that nonlinearity. So there's an infiniteness that is how many guides we would have. At any given point in time, there are things that stand out because we're very resonant with it. For example, if someone has a close family member that has passed, then that energy is very close to them for quite a time, that they can always, they're accessible because of that linear connection. But the amount of support that we have is unbelievable. The way they show this to me usually is through the fairy realm, and this does not mean only our guides are fairy, because we have connections that are angelic, that we would call, or galactic, or elemental, and in essence, that's part of that linear layer, because there's much more to it than that. But the fairies, for example, how much they celebrate our energy is just so beautiful. So it's like a whole group that we constantly have around us, that we constantly have access to. And our own guides, or sometimes our higher self, or us in another resonance, like a parallel life. So it's constantly shifting, but it's so infinite, and the love flow is constant. The limitations that we experience, like good behavior gets good things and bad behavior gets bad things, that does not apply to the subtle realm. Like sometimes I'm arguing with my guides and they don't have any feeling about that. They don't have any like, well, okay, if you're going to be that way, we don't want to work with you anymore. It's a non-issue because the love is so deep and profound. And that's what we are constantly coming to in this physicality, is really learning to love the self, love the process of life, love the challenges just as much as we love the triumph, even though they don't feel the same, because it's all about loving the self so much that everything that you are experiencing is through that lens of love. Loving life so much that you see yourself reflected in it, that whole reflection of others and self and others, or the uniqueness and the unity, the separation and the connection. And it's just love that keeps connecting things more and more. And that is infinite.
It's kind of a paradox in a sense that that everything is love, and we talked about it before, that when you open up to the spiritual path, struggles come along and things come up, and it's not a smooth ride, and it just kind of feels the opposite in a way. And also saying, love your struggle. It just seems so, what, should I love it? But I've come to that as well, that it's really the hero's journey, I feel like. I mean, I look at people who are consciously walking on the spiritual path. They're so brave, so brave. They're daring to look, in the closet and see what's there. And skeletons are coming out of the closet and looking into their own dirt and baggage and realizing there's gold there, That's really brave. That's really brave. Because it's so easy to ignore it. It's so easy to run away in our world with all the distractions. It's so easy. But actually looking at, your shadows, that's the bravest things I know. So just
I
wanted
agree.
to say that. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
And that trust, to have that trust that life is for us, so important. So yeah. I'm feeling like we're actually here to, I've come to that, that's where I'm at right now, that we're here to raise our own frequency and the frequency on the planet. So in a way we have two jobs. It's like, you know, loving ourselves and also giving love to others. It's that duality in a sense that comes back again and again, like your own individual work and then help others. But you cannot only help others or only help yourself. You need to do both. And that's where balance comes in all the time. Like a tree will fall if it's not in balance. And I love like simple principles like that is actually universal truths in a way that, yeah, that has helped me a lot. Like the balance and the duality, like if I do too much of that, it won't be balanced. Like if I'm too extreme and meditating all the time and not, you know, enjoying my life, then it's unbalanced again. So constantly back to that balance. Yeah, that's what I found.
Absolutely. Yes, that the full flow of give and receive. And we see those clues all in nature, that when that full flow is there, there's a mutually beneficial expression that nature has and moving with those cycles. And it's easy to overlook sometimes, but once you start to honor it, that full flow is so important. And it's all about that balance, exactly like you said. That was very well put.
It's wisdom in nature. Yeah. All right, Jamye. Well, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation again. And I love just dancing in this conversation, not knowing where it's going, and then just being in the moment, see what comes up. And for those of you guys who are interested in the workshop, I will put a link below in the video description. It's coming up now in June in Stockholm. So all the best with that, Jamye, and all the best with your beautiful, beautiful work.
Thank you. And for you, Janneke, I'm so glad to hear that you've started connecting with a community and creating that for people, because it's so important to feel that like-mindedness and that support. So best wishes for you as well. It's really beautiful what you're doing.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
Excited to be a master class teacher soon.
Yes, I'm so excited too. Oh, it's going to be really profound. All right. Thank you guys for watching, and make sure that you check out Jamye Price YouTube channel. Is really awesome. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Much light from Norway and the US. Bye.